Welcome to this Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. And today we are kicking off our summer series on the legendary, one of the biggest names in comics, Mark Millar. And to do that, I have along with me an awesome co-host, and I believe a Mark Millar fan. Please welcome Nicholas Pepin. How you doing, Nicholas?
Yeah, very, very good. Glad to be here for this one. But we were having a conversation a little bit ago about his name.
Yes. We're going to kick off a whole summer talking about him. We wanted to make sure we were in fact pronouncing his last name correctly.
Yeah.
I believe in earlier episodes when we started promoting this, I was saying Millar, which is what I have always said.
Yep.
But we just found out it's Millar.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain we've done at least one episode about Millar when we did the Ultimate, and we probably said Millar.
I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
I'm sure we did. But we kept trying to look it up, and I ended up finding a YouTube video where a Scottish woman, which I would say that is the best way to get the pronunciation, was introducing him to a masterclass, and she says Mark Millar. And so I went, well, there you go. It is Millar. So here we go. If we do say Millar, just realize that comes from decades of us saying Millar. And we've just recently found out it was Millar. So there you go.
Of being Americans who don't know how to pronounce other words.
Yes. All right. Well, we're kicking things off with this summer series on the works of Mark Millar, at least a few of them. We can't obviously do everything, which we'll get into in a minute. But if you are into comics or even just comic book movies, I know you are familiar with Mark Millar. Or if you don't recognize the name, I can guarantee you have seen some of his movies or movies that are based off of his stories. Because he's responsible for
a lot.
I would say, yeah. And I would say some of the most popular stories and characters.
Yes.
That are out there. And a lot of his stuff, very close to almost everything that he has done has made its way to both the big and the small screen. But before we get into all of that, let's talk a little bit about where he came from and how he got started. So Mark Millar grew up in Scotland, in a town called Coatbridge. He is the youngest of 6 kids, and like most of us, he got hooked on comics as a kid, and he was reading stuff like The Beano and 2000 AD. I can't say I was familiar with The Beano. I do know 2000 AD because that's where Judge Dredd premiered.
Yeah, to say that I knew that one, but Beano is also unfamiliar to me.
Yeah, wasn't familiar with that one. But I did discover some stuff which I thought was important to say, because I think what I'm about to say about Mark Millar's life does show itself in some of his work. So life wasn't exactly easy for him. He lost both his parents when he was a teenager, and he ended up not finishing college. And it was by that point that he had already found his love of comics and was getting his draw towards comics. And one of his earlier gigs was writing for 2000 AD. In fact, he would even later team up with Grant Morrison. There's this big UK British invasion of comic book writers that happened. And Mark Millar and Grant Morrison would team up on projects like Swamp Thing and The Authority. So can't ask for more iconic duo than Grant Morrison and Mark Millar.
Not really. I mean, when you think of modern comics,
yes,
those are the guys. I mean, because you did that series not that long ago, or I mean, I guess at this point it would have been last year, where you did the gold and the silver and the bronze.
Yes.
And you broke it down in. So if you go past that age, I think that's when you get
the modern age.
Modern age, when you get to the Mount Rushmore of Millar, Morrison, some of the other
Millar again, maybe.
I mean, it might just be 4 different versions of him because of what he's done. So
yeah, I mean, it's just amazing the resurgence that happened around this time, and how much of what these men did that is so impactful on this. But let's talk about some of that impact that Mark Millar did. So he first started working with DC, and one of the biggest things he did with DC is one of my personal favorite Elseworld stories, and that's Superman Red Sun.
Yeah, which I mean is pretty. I mean, we've talked about. I know we've hinted at Red Sun when we did the Halloween bracket a while ago, because we brought up Brightburn
Yes.
as kind of definitely, kind of a different take on Red Sun, but definitely a take on Red Sun. And they did the Red Sun storyline in Supergirl.
Yeah.
Or
It,
kind of a
yeah.
version of
Kind.
the
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
yeah.
But no. Yeah. They did it. They did attempt it. Yes. But man, Superman Red Sun is so good, and I can't wait to cover that one on the show one day. But that's really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's really the only major thing he did in DC. Are you familiar with anything else?
Other than that, no. I mean, I think he dabbled here and there, but I think
because like I said, he worked on the Authority, he worked on Swamp Thing. But I think in terms of something that you would immediately think this is a work of Mark Millar, it's Superman Red Sun.
Yeah.
But then he jumps over to Marvel, and oh my goodness, the impact he had on Marvel. And let's just go ahead. I know this is one of your favorites. Let's talk about the fact that he is the man behind the Ultimates.
Yeah. I mean, he teamed up with Bendis and because Bendis had started the Ultimate Universe with Ultimate Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And then Millar, I almost said Millar. Millar joined in.
It'll happen.
Millar joined in, and they immediately, because it's hard to remember the exact timeline of when everything jumped, but I know that Ultimate Fantastic Four and Ultimate X-Men were all, I mean, I think they all kind of started, I mean, Spider-Man had been around for a little while before they brought those in, and I don't remember where those two titles were when they did the Ultimates and they brought in everything else.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. Again, I'm not as huge of a Marvel person as I am.
I mean,
but let's see. So so 2000 was Ultimate Spider-Man, 2001 was Ultimate X-Men, and then the Ultimates was 02, and Ultimate Fantastic Four was 04.
Okay, yeah, let's see. So I know, because I think he was working on Ultimate X-Men before he did the Ultimates. But I mean, if you read the Ultimates and you go back and listen to that episode that you and I did, you see a lot of what the current MCU is doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Like they dabble with a lot of the, the 50, 60, 80 whatever years of before. But I mean, you can see, and the one storyline we haven't gotten to yet, and I'm sure you'll get there, is definitely Millar. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the current MCU stuff is directly involved from what the Ultimate line was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just kind of the attitude of the MCU is definitely Ultimates. The look of a lot of the characters is more based on the Ultimates than it is the general everyday Marvel universe. But wait, there's more. This is also the man behind one of my favorite storylines. I own almost every collection of this, and that is Civil War.
Right, and that's what I was kind of alluding to a couple seconds ago. Is that so? After he was, because now for those of you who aren't as much into the comic books and you're more into the movies and TV shows, you had said Elseworlds otherwise, but Marvel kind of has their own thing too. They've got what they call 616, which is the main universe, like the standard storyline. I can't remember the number for the Ultimate Universe, but the Ultimate Universe has a different number. So he left that because it was kind of like Ultimate was kind of like Elseworlds for Marvel.
So the Ultimate Universe is 6160.
Okay, all right.
Not that doesn't get confusing.
No, but I mean, so basically, so he leaves that side project and he jumps over to 616, the main project, and does Civil War, which changed everything.
Yeah, Civil War, and yes, there's the movie, but the movie is a drop in the bucket compared to what this storyline was to the comics. I mean, I even have a Civil War comic in which it's got a Howard the Duck story in it.
I mean, I know a lot of people blame Miller for the fact that I mean, I think even DC started doing it to some extent, but Marvel really kind of sort of became eventized, where like every couple years they have to do this big event where everything ties in, and like you know, to read the whole storyline, you have to, because I mean, after, well, before Civil War you had House of M, which was kind of everything but not quite.
Yeah, about half of
You know,
everything.
Planet Hulk had some that led into, you know, a lot of that stuff. But
Yeah, because that as soon as that morphed into like World War Hulk, that was
yeah,
starting to involve
right.
more.
But I mean, it wasn't necessarily Miller who was responsible for it. Miller wrote Civil War, and because they had kind of allowed him to kind of do everything, and everybody kind of jumped in and made it so popular. Had he not done it so well,
Yeah,
and had it not been so well received, you know, maybe they wouldn't do it. But that's kind of the problem, is that like when somebody goes, wait a minute, that worked, and that worked well, they're gonna keep going on, and you know, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say that, you know, he might be responsible, but he's not to be blamed.
no, no. Man, yeah, Civil War is just so good. I'm even now thinking I need to go back and reread some of those. Uh, and then one that also is very famous is he's the man behind Old Man Logan, which of course was adapted into the movie Logan,
Yeah,
slightly,
yeah,
loosely adapted. Because yeah, Old Man Logan, very similar to what you were just saying. Old Man Logan involves as many of the Marvel characters as I guess they could get to be a part of that, and having this post apocalyptic future, and having who Logan would run into and what life was like now that certain heroes have fallen, and other superheroes and villains have taken over certain parts of America. And man, that's a good read too. I don't think Mark Millar writes anything that's not just good to read.
no, well, that would be true. I mean, I haven't read everything that he's written,
No, I can't say I have either.
but I've read a lot, and we'll get there as we go on, because we'll start getting to when he goes indie.
Oh yeah, no, I mean let's go ahead and get into that. So in 2004, Miller decided he's going to do his own thing, and he launched Miller World. And it was through Miller World that we got the his independent stuff that many of y'all might be familiar with, even if you don't know it's Mark Millar. And that included Kick-Ass, Wanted, Kingsman, The Secret Service, and Jupiter's Legacy.
I mean, I have read um, a lot of what you just said. I've never read Kingsman, but I have enjoyed the movie. I'm not sure. I've only ever actually seen the first one, but I did enjoy it. Wanted, which I think you said we were going to be doing at some point.
Yep.
Okay.
We are going to cover Wanted, Jupiter's Legacy, and both Kick-Ass movies this summer.
Okay. So I will withhold any further statements about Wanted or Kick-Ass. I did read both of them, and I thoroughly enjoyed both of those books, but we'll stop from going any further than that.
Yeah, we're just gonna focus on Miller himself. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got to be familiar with these. Wanted, of course, was the first one of that collection that was adapted. And then you had Kick-Ass, Kick-Ass 2. You've had four. Is it 3 or 4 Kingsman movies?
I don't even know, because they spun off or did a prequel, a sequel.
Yeah, because it's Kingsman: The Secret Service, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and then I think there's the one that's called The Kingsman.
Yeah.
So there might just be the 3. I have seen them, but I can't remember if there's one I'm missing or not. And then Jupiter's Legacy was a Netflix series that unfortunately only lasted 1 season before it was canceled. But I am curious if you knew this. Miller's Miller World, so all of the books he wrote underneath his Miller World imprint, were all bought by Netflix in 2017.
I did know that. He sold the whole Miller World thing to them.
Yeah. First comic creator to do that. I mean, how How crazy. It makes me a little worried, though, because he sold it in 2017. All we've gotten so far is Jupiter's Legacy. Which, like I said, unfortunately did not do well and was canceled after the first season. And it's not a season ending that would make someone happy watching a show. And so I'm hoping there's more to come, but I'm kind of worried. Like, does Netflix know what to do with it?
I mean, based off some of the other things they've been doing recently, probably not.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too. But man, I mean, could you imagine getting a wanted either movie or series that's I know we're not going to get into too much of this, but since we're talking about the Netflix stuff, a wanted movie or series that's maybe closer to the comic than what the movie gave us?
I would love it. I would love it so much.
And then, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see, does Netflix actually use this, or is this one of those properties? Like I've always said, Disney owns the Muppets, but doesn't seem to know what to do with them.
Yeah, even
So,
though, well, that's a whole other topic that I could, that's a rabbit hole we could go down because I love the Muppets.
oh, oh, I do too. Yeah, absolutely. No, whenever there's I mean, we'll talk about it for a little bit. There's a video I've seen on TikTok where the guy's talking about Disney remaking all these movies as live action. And he goes, "Why do you do that?" He goes, "You've got the greatest property to do live action ish versions of these movies, and that's the Muppets."
Right, and
Like,
they've already done two of them really good. That's
I mean, they also did Muppets Wizard of Oz, and that wasn't good.
okay.
But
Well, I don't like to talk about that one, but I was
yeah, but I mean, yeah, why can't we see a Muppets Beauty and the Beast or a Muppets Aladdin?
oh,
Like, come on,
now you're just
give me
making
that
now
stuff.
you're just getting me all happy for no reason because it'll never happen.
Yeah, I hate that it's. I mean, because they do try stuff every now and then. Like we got the Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Right,
We got where they attempted to do another series.
which was
Uh,
really good, but they canceled it after 1 year.
yeah. So we've gotten a few things, but it's like, and I mean the Muppets, the movie, the Muppets, it was okay. Muppets Most Wanted, I could be happy never seeing again. So hopefully Netflix can do something with Millar World, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what Netflix is up to because I mean they do stuff like Stranger Things where you're like, wow, you guys know what you're doing, and then they do stuff like Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, and they clearly have no concept what they're doing.
Yeah. Yep. We shall see. We shall see. All right. So let's talk about Mark Millar in terms of his style. So for those of you who aren't familiar with his work, I think he has this unique ability to write stories that both go to the extreme, larger than life. It's exaggerated, but yet at the same time, he keeps it grounded and keeps it almost relatable.
Yes, I mean even in the hyperviolence of some of his indie stuff, like it is a little bit more grounded. It's not as fantastical as some of the other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the story still may be, like ridiculously over the top, but something in the way that he puts it all together just, yeah, still makes it something that you almost, like I said, you almost can relate to what you're seeing. Yeah. It's amazing because you think about like with Kick Ass, he's got this grounded take on superheroes. When you've got Jupiter's Legacy, it's this, we never think about the way superheroes will experience just everyday life because they are superheroes. And even something like The Kingsman, which is essentially just pretty much Miller's take on James Bond.
Yeah,
But again, he can do it in such a way that whereas James Bond's, you kind of feel like he is this character or caricature almost. You look at some of the main characters in The Kingsman, and you kind of go, yeah, I could run into that guy on the street. Yeah, it's crazy because he can pull you in. I think that's the biggest draw of Mark Millar. Or see, I did it. Of Mark Millar is that you start reading something that he wrote, it's hard to put it down.
Yeah, I mean, because like Wanted, I don't want to keep going back to that one because we're gonna do that whole thing, but like Wanted gets pretty dark and pretty gritty at points, but like you just keep going because like it's so engrossing and so well done, and you know he picks good artists. I don't know if you had it on your in your notes or not, but I was reading a little bit about Mark Millar earlier today, and it said early in his career he either had a chance meeting or intentional, that was not clear, with Alan Moore.
Yeah.
And he told Alan Moore like, "Oh, you know, I plan on being an artist and an author." And Moore said, "Pick one. You can't do both." And I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't know his art. I can't say I've seen anything that he himself has drawn, so I don't know if he's capable of doing both. But he definitely chose
Mm.
right when it came to writing, and then just
Oh, absolutely.
all of the artists that he has chosen to work with. Like, I mean, well, working with you know, somebody who Alan Moore brought along with Watchmen, doing a lot of stuff. Dave Gibbons,
Hmm.
and then John Romita Jr. and really helping land the punch of the writing. It was is picking the good artist to make that come alive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you take someone like Stephen McNiven that he worked with on both Civil War and Old Man Logan. He knows what he's doing. He's one of those. He absolutely knows what he's doing, and it's very hard because there's other people. And you brought up Alan Moore. We can bring up Alan Moore. There's Alan Moore, which you can probably name something he wrote that's just not the greatest. And same thing with Frank Miller. You can probably find some story that's just not the greatest. In my personal opinion, from the works that I do know of Mark Millar, it would be hard to determine which one is at the bottom of that list.
Yeah, like without having read everything or more of, you know, I've read a lot.
Yeah.
I would say most of my favorite stuff tends to come out of his universe,
Yeah.
you know, or, you know, it involved, because I know he didn't write everything when it comes to the Ultimates, but like him and Bendis really worked together to kind of create that entire universe and kind of save Marvel to some extent by kind of not necessarily just kind of relaunching interest in Marvel, because you have that like the 90s wasn't good for either Marvel or DC. And then,
No.
you know, we talked about it with Blade a couple years ago.
Well, I mean, DC probably shot back a lot quicker in the 90s than Marvel did because they did the death of Superman.
Well, yeah, but I mean, overall, the comic industry was not healthy in the 90s. And it wasn't just Miller himself. I mean, Miller, you had Grant Morrison had a lot to do with it, Brian Michael Bendis, Seth MacFarlane, although he was more in the earlier 90s, but you know, his stuff towards the end of the 90s with Spawn and
Yeah. Same thing with Jim Lee.
yeah. You know, that definitely helped. I mean, it wasn't like he did it by himself, but I mean, he was definitely a massive part of why comics all of a sudden got good again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I think, without getting too much into some of his actual adaptations, I think we've covered just about everything. Of course, we'll talk about more as we go in through this summer. We will. I mean, we're gonna have a whole summer discussing Mark Millar. This was just kind of your introductory crash course. But yes, like I said earlier, we're going to cover Wanted, Jupiter's Legacy, and both of the Kick-Ass movies. We're going to come back with some one-shots in between those where we will talk about Millar's political and social commentary that he puts into his stories, as well as Nicholas has already brought up, as well as his use of violence. But Nicholas, any final thoughts before we call it on this one-shot?
Hopefully by now you've read a lot of the stuff, not just watched it. But when you're done with the summer, if you well, first off, if you're anything like me, you've probably watched it before you listen to the episode because you don't want spoilers. But now that you've listened to the episode, you've watched it. go hunt it down. Go to the library, swing by your local comic book store, pick it up. Pick up the trade. They have them all collected. Get a read. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us today and learning a little bit more about the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Millar. Don't forget to subscribe to Moving Panels so that you'll get all of our episodes this summer as we talk about Mark Millar. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think. What do you think about the show? What do you think about Millar's work? Let us know. But we'll wrap things up for today for Moving Panels. I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.